Greetings. I'm your host, Glen Alex, and you're watching The Glen Alex Show live on the Bold Brave TV network. Each episode of The Glen Alex Show focuses on a different aspect of health because I believe in the whole person and total health. And I am on a mission to help as many people as I can be joyful, connected, confident, and complete the life experience we call wealth, WELLTH, which is health plus other riches. Now, just think about it for a second. If everyone were living in total health or even in pursuit of it, there would be no wars, there would be no isms, there would be no oppression of any kind. So I hope you join us on this path to total health to make this place safe and loving for everyone. And I'm very excited about this episode of The Glen Alex Show because I believe in service as well. And giving back to humanity, to society, is very fulfilling personally, and it benefits the community. So please help me welcome Adam Littman and Deborah Laser from Humanity Through Art. Hi, guys. How you doing?
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing well, doing well. Thank you for making time to be here.
Oh, thank you for having us.
You're
Absolutely.
welcome. Okay, so if you'll just take maybe a minute each and just introduce yourselves.
Okay, Deborah, you want to go first?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you, Glenn. My name is Deborah Laser, longtime nonprofit supporter. When I met Adam, he had a wonderful idea for a nonprofit called Humanity Through Art. And I was game, gung ho, right from the beginning. Wanted to add my specialty in startup nonprofits and just help him out with his nonprofit, his idea, and get him legalized in all the nonprofits.
Legalized, like
Yeah,
like
we like you legal, Adam.
yeah, right. Legalized.
All 501c3'd
Yeah.
and 990'd and all that stuff.
I mean,
Okay.
I'll be the first to say that sometimes art can be like a drug, but I didn't know we really needed to legalize it.
Oops.
Very funny. Okay. All right. So
Medicinal purposes.
Adam, tell us who you are.
Hi, okay, I'm Adam Littman. I have been a performing and literary artist for, wow, over 30 years at this point. For a long time, I was a professional performer, in front of camera and on stage. And then I worked for my graduate and postgraduate degrees, sort of behind stage in terms of creating art. And so when I was looking around in the community to try and find a community of professional artists in Las Vegas, I found that there really wasn't a whole lot that was craft based and based on the work as opposed to the final product. So Humanity Through Art was founded in actually 2014 to serve our community and sort of give the community an opportunity to feel what the creative process and the process of craft in the arts is about, and how that can better our communities by having a vibrant scene of creativity within.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent. Now, what is the exact mission of Humanity Through Art?
Well, our mission is to serve our communities by creating experiential learning opportunities, as well as opportunities to experience production in a craft-based setting, by cultivating an appreciation and understanding of the arts, not just as a final product, but as the process of creating something, and how we have a catchphrase, for example, that one of my mentors had expressed, which is, art is the mirror we hold up to society, and we need to dare to look into that. And as our culture and our community of artists grows, so too does our culture of compassion and appreciation of the human condition. And that's what the humanities are about, is the exploration.
Okay, we'll get into the deeper meaning behind Humanity Through Art. Right now, I just want to lay the groundwork for people to get the appeal of Humanity Through Art.
Okay.
So, first of all, can you just give us a brief description or definition of humanities? Because my undergraduate degree is in the humanities,
Right.
and when I would tell people, they would like gloss over, like, what is that?
Yeah, yeah. When I was teaching at UNLV, a lot of people found that they needed a humanities credit, and they're like, "I don't understand what that is," because there was such a broad spectrum of things that they could take to fulfill that requirement. The humanities are basically a series of different endeavors. Anything in the arts is part of the humanities, as is generally sociology and history,
Okay.
um, in literature. Anything that explores what it is to be a human being in any given time, and all the ways that we express our humanity. And when you put all of those things together, you have that broad definition of the humanities.
Okay.
Um, so, I mean, that's basically what we're looking at. Again, anything from the arts to history to sociology to literature, anything that's an expression of the human experience and the human condition.
Okay. Okay. So when you say craft-based experiential learning, what kind of crafts are you talking about?
Well, right now we're focusing primarily on creative endeavors. So we have programs lined up or in the planning stages for all different forms and disciplines of the arts and self-expression, as well as exploring. For example, we have a Shakespeare exploration that is starting tomorrow, but exploring work that's been created, but also exploring how our creative process um, helps us to find self-realization, self-discipline, self-esteem through self-expression. And in that, our current programs that are as we're growing are primarily in theater and literature,
Okay.
and both in exploring work that's already been created as well as exploring the creative process. We have, for example, workshops in writing, um, workshops, as I expressed before, in exploring Shakespeare's work. So, you asked about the humanities before, and very briefly, there's a reason why Shakespeare still resonates with us 5,000. Wow. I'm getting real far in the future. I
You're dating
misspoke.
yourself.
I am. I'm dating myself. There's a reason why Shakespeare's work still resonates with us 500 years after it was written, because it explores what it is to feel and what it is to be a human being in those situations and in those times. And through that, we learn something about ourselves as we learn more about it.
Okay. Well, and I think that's a very appropriate place to start um, with creativity and the humanities, is because, in my opinion, too many people have become disconnected from their emotions. They've
Absolutely. And
they've
that's,
they've fallen into rhetoric and fallen into follow the leader, and have so disconnected themselves from their own intuition, their own inner selves, that we find ourselves in this horrible pickle that we're in these days.
yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why the arts and the humanities are so important. What we found in our research, when we were first starting out, um, particularly through a study that President Obama had commissioned, through the National Endowment for the Arts. One of the things that we've learned is that as we eliminate arts programs, for example, in our schools, as we cut budgets, usually the first thing to go are the arts and humanities. And we can find a direct correlation between the decline in public offerings in creation of the arts and humanities, exploring those things by doing, and an increase in bullying and violence in our schools, a lack of compassion amongst our children, because they're not being given the opportunity to put themselves in the place of another person's experience.
Hmm.
When we cut out the arts and humanities, we cut out people's ability to see through the eyes of someone else and develop empathy for other people's situations.
Okay.
Um, yeah, our mission is very much about bringing how the arts in our communities, the ability to create, the ability to make your voice heard in a creative way, whether that be expressing your voice through movement or expressing your voice through writing or performing, what we find is when we don't allow people's voices to be heard and don't provide opportunities for them to develop skills to express themselves, they express themselves in ways that are detrimental to their communities. When you can express yourself and are valued for what you have to say through self-expression and writing, you don't find the need to pick up a gun and make yourself heard that way.
Right, right. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to ask you to hold it right there. We'll get into it a little deeper when we come back. Hi, you're watching the Glen Alex Show live on the Bold Brave TV network. When we return, Adam, Deborah, and I will go deeper into what humanity through art can do for you and for your community. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm Glen Alex, and this is the Glen Alex Show live on the Bold Brave TV network. I'm here with Adam Littman and Deborah Laser from Humanity Through Art, a new organization that is based on helping individuals become healthier mentally and emotionally and contribute to their community and society at large. So we left off in segment one talking about the importance of the humanities in the world. So Adam and Deborah, welcome back. Come back in.
Howdy.
Howdy. So I did a little research and came up with some fascinating information about why the humanities are important in our lives. And the first thing that struck me as you were talking about, Adam, when we left the first segment, was the correlation between the humanities and violence. So you were saying that people who can express themselves creatively don't need to pick up a gun. Did you want to add any more about that?
Sure. I mean, what we have found in various programs that we've run over the years is that when you give someone the tools to find their voice, it can change their world entirely.
Mm-hmm.
We've did a program a few years back at a shelter for the underhomed in Miami. And one of the things that we found is when people were able to find their value by being in an environment where what they had to say was valued
Mm-hmm.
and their experience was valued, um, the way in which their self-esteem and their ability to um, to change their lives in ways that allowed them to be more a part of their communities and grow as human beings was absolutely inspiring. What we talk about is everybody, no matter what your situation is, there's something that no one can ever have that you have. No one will
Exactly.
ever have your unique experience and perspective as a person in this world. And by allowing in our outreach programs, by allowing people to find the tools or to develop the tools to share that experience
Mm-hmm.
and reinforce the idea that everyone's experience and perspective has intrinsic value. And when we don't get that as a contribution to the greater society loses out.
Yes, I totally agree with that. And as a clinical social worker, what you I liken what you call the voice to the personal truth, who the
Mhm.
individual is at their core and their own inherent uniqueness with gifts and talents to share with the world. And I can tell you some of the clients I work with have been stunted. They have not been given the opportunity to express who they are at their core and to share that with other people. So I'm really loving this. I'm really loving this. Now, a question I have: the humanities are correlated with violence. Yes, are there specific forms of creativity or art that has a does that correlation vary according to the type of creativity or art? So, painting
Surprisingly,
versus dancing.
yeah, I hear what you're saying. Surprisingly, it doesn't really. It, but the access to various forms of self-expression varies greatly. So, for example, right now, um, we're coming to you from our small office, where we do all of our administrative stuff, and that's the only space we have. So, in order to offer programs in, for example, physical expression, which can be extremely curative to people who have an aptitude to express themselves through
Mm-hmm.
physical movement, um, we don't have access to that right now. Hopefully, in the future, we will, to be able to tap into that area of creativity. So, what we found, and what the research shows, is that when we find what each person uniquely clicks into in terms of finding catharsis, or that feeling of emotional rebirth or spiritual renewal, through expression, different people find that catharsis in different ways. And when we can key in and provide the opportunity to reach that through creativity and self-expression, we can reach more people. But what we found is that once you key into being able to express yourself in whatever way that resonates to you, it has the same effect.
Yes, yes. And it sounds like you're also talking about the different ways that people learn. Some are tactile, some are auditory, some are
Yes.
visual. Okay,
And that's
so
absolutely it. Yeah, that's absolutely it. Having been an educator now for more years than I want to think of,
okay.
um,
Me
you know,
too as
5,000, you
well.
yeah,
said.
well, yeah, 5,000, well, 5,000 years for Shakespeare anyway. Sometimes it feels that way. Um,
Based on Gardner's multiple intelligence and multiple ways of learning, we do see that people learn in many different ways, and having all of the arts represented is our goal for programming, through dance, through applied art, through music, through photography,
Mm,
theater, writing.
okay.
That's our hope in the long term.
right.
Okay.
And, as Deborah said, when we look at multiple intelligences, for example, and also the way that people learn, um, that is exactly it. Not everybody keys in, and not everybody resonates with every different discipline of art. Some people, writing is what works for them. They never want to step in front of people, but if they are able to do the writing, and um, for example, in our writing workshops, I often say I'd much rather do story time than having them feel like they're turning in a paper to be graded when they're sharing their writing or they're sharing their work.
Right.
Some people don't feel comfortable with that, but very often they'll create the work and then give it to somebody else to read who does feel comfortable with that.
Yes.
Our goal is to make everybody, not to push anybody outside
No,
of what
comfortable.
what is going to be helpful to them. This
Mm,
is not school. One of the things that, when we have our young artist program, which we've done usually over a summer, when we've offered it, one of the things I tell them is, this is not school. You're not getting graded. You get completely out of it what you put into it. And that's
yes.
one of the things that, I would invite people to visit our website, which is humanitythroughart.com. And on there, we show our 3-tier plan. And the goal is not just to serve our community and people who have never expressed themselves before, but we also train an audience to expect more from the art that's available to them in their communities, which also helps our artists be able to serve their communities by being able to work in the communities in which they live.
Okay.
And
Okay.
communities being not only geographic, but ethnicity, culture, um, the diversity of all of that,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
religion. I
Okay.
mean, it has no boundaries.
It has no boundaries. And
Let
so,
me make a comment real quick. In relation to what Deborah just said, you brought up the word diversity, and this is one of the things I found in my research was that the humanities provides an avenue for a deeper understanding and appreciation of difference, which
Absolutely.
sounds to me like way more than tolerance, and which
Absolutely. Wow.
I love because we are
Yeah.
different
I
than
mean, and one of the things that we found is we have our underserved communities in terms of access to programming in the humanities, not just for young people, but all the way across the board. Is we're one of the things I talk about is Dr. King, for example. Unfortunately, when he was taken from us, was when he was starting to talk about socioeconomic equality.
Mhm.
Um, the civil rights movement was in full swing, and he started to move into socioeconomic issues. Um, and that's right what he was speaking on when he was taken from us. And one of the things that we find is our underserved communities cross all ethnic boundaries. They because a lot of our underserved communities um, are based on socioeconomics now more than they're based on racial divisions. And yet our nonprofit structures, or at least some of the things that have already been established for our underserved communities, tend to move on ethnic or racial guidelines,
Okay.
because the perspective is skewed. And so we have some wonderful programs, for example, in Nevada, for certain ethnic programs, um, but they don't reach all of our underserved community. And by creating creating programming which is in a sense self-driven by our participants, um, we sort of eliminate that idea that we need to do, for example, you know, Once on This Island or A Raisin in the Sun or um, any of the other wonderful new shows or experiences that are ethnically based. We don't want to eliminate or alienate any of our community.
Right. Right.
So it's a big task. It's a very big task.
Okay. And sounds like one that the two of you can handle. So right now we're going to take another short break. I'm Glen Alex, and you are watching The Glen Alex Show, live on the Bold Brave TV network. When we return, Adam, Deborah, and I will go a little deeper into humanity through art. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back. We are back. I'm your host, Glen Alex, and this is The Glen Alex Show, live on the Bold Brave TV network. I am here having a fascinating conversation with Adam Littman and Deborah Laser from Humanity Through Art, talking about why the humanities are important individually and socially, and how the humanities contribute to a better world. So, when we left off in the previous segment, we were talking about the different ways that the humanities can benefit the world. So, let's pick up there, Adam and Deborah. One other thing that came up in my research was that the humanities also provides a life enhancing recognition of beauty in many forms.
Mhm.
So, speak to that.
Wow. That's big. That's huge. It's interesting. I mean, I'm reminded. I don't know if Deborah's experienced this book. There's a wonderful kind of life changing book called Zen in the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance,
Oh, no.
and one of the things that was in the book, and the reason I bring it up, and I would highly recommend it, but there's this idea of quality. The one of the main character is teaching rhetoric at university, and he's tasked with trying to teach his students what quality is in rhetoric or writing, and he kind of goes mad because how can you teach that? I mean, how can you teach what quality is? It's something you know when you see it,
And very
Hmm.
inert.
and beauty in the arts is kind of like that as well. um in my view, real art, real quality art is transformative. You
Okay.
go into the experience, you experience it, and through experiencing it, you leave the theater or the gallery or the concert hall. You somehow leave that changed. Something has changed in your perspective or in the way that you see the world. You have experienced something that has changed you fundamentally as a human being. And good, solid art does that.
Okay.
Um, it's not always comfortable, but it leaves you changed. I mean, would you agree with that?
Absolutely. It's an opportunity for somebody to transcend. It's like a rebirth of oneself through the art or the humanities that they choose.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, when you read a good book, if one is a reader, or you hear a piece of music that makes you feel, it's all about feeling. I think that's really it. I think we're in a society. Our society is trying to constantly move away from the idea of it being okay to feel things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I remember I had when you're teaching, you're always trying to find those teachable moments, And I remember I was teaching at a middle school at one point, and one of my students had just lost a grandparent, had just passed. And she was in a very emotional state. And other kids, kids can be mean.
Mm-hmm.
And other kids around her were teasing her about being, quote unquote, emo. And I couldn't take it. I just stopped everything in the class and I said, okay, we're going to talk about that. And we didn't talk specifically about this girl's personal experience. That was for her to share or not share. But we took that moment to talk about how being able to feel our emotions is incredibly important for us to be emotionally healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And the arts provide that for us in many, many different ways.
Okay.
Um, we
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just I agree with what you both just said. It sounds to me though like in recognizing beauty in its many forms kind of um, opens us up to see beauty in the world
Yes,
more. And
absolutely.
because we do have a negativity bias where we tend to gravitate towards negative things. Yet if I have this life enhancing recognition of beauty in many forms, then I'm going to see beauty in the leaves on the tree. I'm going to even see beauty in the wind, even though it congests me.
Right, right,
That's
right.
And if I can
okay.
just add, it's almost like you're seeing beauty from within. You're seeing beauty from your friend or
Hmm.
your foe, but there's beauty in the other person, and there's beauty around us in our community.
Right, and I like what you said about the negative bias that we tend to have. One of the things, I've expressed it at people who are trying to find something to write about, and I'm like, it's kind of like the punch buggy. If you're ever familiar with the concept of a punch buggy, right? Yeah, you look for the Volkswagen Beetle, right? And once you get that in your consciousness, you're seeing them everywhere.
Yes.
Negativity bias is kind of like the same way that, for lack of a better term, a beauty bias can be like that. Once you
Hmm.
start conditioning yourself to see that beauty, to see the beauty in the construction of a piece of art, or music, or a photograph, or a piece of writing. Once you get in that mindset of seeing the beauty in that I think goes a lot to what we're talking about in terms of craft based. It's
Okay.
about seeing the beauty in the construction of self-expression rather than the spectacle of being overwhelmed by smoke and mirrors.
Okay. Okay.
And
And just in having this conversation, talking about being more open to beauty everywhere, I can't imagine experiencing something beautiful and wanting to hurt another person.
Right, right. When you start to see that, let's call it a positivity bias instead of a
Okay.
negativity bias, once you start to sort of see a positivity bias and recognize that even if you don't agree, for example, when you study debate, you can recognize a well-formed argument, even if you don't agree with that position.
Mm-hmm.
And in many ways, that's what our socio-political society in our democratic republic, that's what that's based on, is the ability to recognize the validity of an argument that you don't share.
Right.
And through being able to recognize those things, coming to a point of agreement. But when we take away in our culture, both from our kids and our adults, the ability to recognize the construction of a solid argument or the construction of a piece of art, we eliminate the ability to recognize the validity of what is before you, even if you don't share that experience.
Right.
And in many ways, the creation of that art is what allows us to express that experience in a way that other people can share it.
Yes. Yes. And to me, that speaks to understanding is not agreement. You can understand
Absolutely.
someone, you can empathize with them, you can see things from their perspective, but that doesn't mean you have to change who you are, what you think to to be able to share that with them. So
Right,
I
right.
I think this is awesome. This is awesome. So let's get into some nuts and bolts of humanity through arts. You have two programs kicking off tomorrow.
Well, no, we've had in perpetuity what we call the Humanity Through Art Writer Circle,
Okay.
which is for anybody who wants to learn how to express themselves in writing. And one of our circle method basically puts professional writers and professional level writers in the same process as people who are writing for
Nice.
the first time.
Like me, I
I mean,
joined that. That was fun.
okay. So that class is for adults.
That's, well,
Anybody.
we've had people as young as 14 or 15.
Okay.
Um, I look at maturity level. We do not, one thing that I would qualify is we don't censor what is written.
Okay.
So we don't necessarily target that program to kids. Although
Okay.
when our young artist program we do, this is not our young artist program.
Okay.
So this is in perpetuity, and anybody is welcome to come. Um,
And we partnered with the Clark
and
County
right
Library.
now, because we don't have a physical space, hopefully we'll be able to kick off some fundraising and raise the money to have a physical space where we can do these things. We are partnered with the Las Vegas Clark County Library District for
Okay.
our literary and theatrical programs or Shakespeare programs. Um, and we're partnered with them. They got a space and they need programs, and we got programs and we need space.
Okay.
So we've
Now,
partnered with
let me,
them for that.
okay. Now, it is so that program is in person.
That's in
Any
person.
any
These are programs that are in person. Our
any plans
Shakespeare
to make
exploration is also in person.
okay. Any plans to make the writing class or virtual for people who are not in the immediate environment?
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
We've been doing a virtual writer circle um, throughout the whole pandemic.
Okay.
Um,
That's
and
nice.
if one were to go on to meetup.com and look up Humanity Through Art Las Vegas, they'll find our programming. And in between our programs with the library, with the writer circle, particularly since it's November, which is National Novel Writing Month, we are also doing virtual writer circles um, online through Zoom.
Okay. Is there any cost for programs to
All of
participate?
this programming is free and open to the public.
Okay. Now,
Um, Go ahead.
is there any type of person or type of issue that you won't allow in your programs?
We don't allow anyone to. We don't allow hate speech.
Okay.
You know, we don't. I mean, fortunately, we've not had to deal with much of that. Um, or well, some we don't censor what's going on. However, we do very often, try and steer people to finding a way to express themselves in a manner that's going to allow people to get where they're coming from. And when you have things like hate speech or just outright offensive material,
Mm-hmm.
that automatically cuts off a whole group of people that you're trying to reach. So, fortunately, we haven't had a lot of that experience in the past. And so we kind of have to deal with that on a case by case basis.
Okay.
But one of the things that we talk about is your experience is your experience. If we're saying that everybody's experience has value, intrinsic value, we learn from everybody's experience. But what we find is that people who tend to express those experiences in an offensive way. And I don't mean to say, people have been offended by my writing because they don't like the words I choose. We're not
Right.
talking about that. What we're
Right.
talking about is writing that is intended to attack
Right.
other people.
Okay.
Um, we don't really tolerate that. And what we have found is that people who tend to create those type of things want to be in their echo chamber anyway.
Okay. So, humanity through art also teaches people how to communicate.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Um, the arts and humanities, they're always history is a area that in universities and colleges is considered part of, well, most often part of the humanities department overall.
Okay.
And one of the things that I've found, in my study of particularly theater and literature is the study of the humanities is in many ways the study of what it is to be a person in a period of time outside of what the history books tend to relate to us. You can see what is important to a culture during a certain period of time by looking at their art,
Mm-hmm.
reading their literature,
Mm-hmm.
seeing their theater. And in many ways the history of theater, for example, is the history of spirituality and religion as well. And sometimes they're in opposition to each other, and sometimes they use each other historically, but
Okay.
it's an incredible endeavor.
Okay. Oh, sounds like. Okay. Well, this is a good stopping point because it's time for our last break. I'm Glen Alex, and you're watching The Glen Alex Show live on the Bold Brave TV network. When we return, Adam and Deborah will have some really important takeaways for you. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back. We are back. I'm Glen Alex, and you're watching The Glen Alex Show live on the Bold Brave TV network. Here with Adam Littman and Deborah Laser from Humanity Through Art, talking about how this wonderful organization can help individuals be healthier mentally, physically, emotionally, and even spiritually, and how that can contribute to society. So, guys, come on back. And how can people support this wonderful organization?
Well, let me begin by saying there it takes a village to run an organization, and I've we have opportunities for people to be involved on a board level, a volunteer level, internship, both youth and collegiately based. We have the ability to take in people, give them credit. We are a 501c3, so we can um, uh, uh, um, sign off on paperwork for people to gain skills and abilities in communication and marketing, uh, community outreach, as well as funds are great, and we depend on donations and funding uh, from our community. And what's important is that we are community based. We are here in Las Vegas, and availing ourselves to our many different communities here, and we want involvement from our community.
Okay. How can people get involved and support? What do they need to do?
But
How do they contact you?
definitely go to our website, Humanity Through Art, and it's THRU, through art.com. We do have a contact sheet as well as a board form to fill out to be on our board that we're building. And as well, we have a donation page through PayPal.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for that. So, as we are winding down the show, I'd like each of you to take a minute or so and just give us one nugget. What is the one takeaway you want viewers to have about humanity through art?
Okay, well, one of the things that I would say is just jumping off what Deborah was saying. We donations of funds are fantastic and definitely needed, but we also need donations of time. And one of the things that we talk about artists is if you want a community in which you have a thriving artistic community where artists can gather and work together, keep their skills sharp, and create, they need to take ownership of that community. In order to offer some of the programs that we've discussed on your wonderful show, I can dance if I want to, but that's not my area of specialization. So, we need artists who believe in what we're doing to come and give of their time to do more workshops and really get into those different disciplines of the humanities to be able to offer more to our community. So giving of time, particularly from artists in our community, is very important. And ownership of that. We create the community in which we live. And if we want a community that is compassionate and values those things that the humanities can give, and that's the business community as well as the artistic community,
and sees the beauty,
and sees that creative thought, the ability to create benefits everything from our everyday lives to our businesses. Those, when we get that together, our community has ownership of the society that they build.
Okay, well, thank you for that. We only have like a couple of minutes left, so I'm going to thank you both for being here and for sharing information about humanity through art, and I will support it as much as I can, no matter where I am in the world. So thank you again for your time and for sharing this wonderful Humanity Through Art organization with us. So thank you, guys.
Thank you, Glenn. It was a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you for having us on your show.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. And thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Glen Alex Show. I really hope you get involved in humanity through art. If not, then some organization that helps the individuals be healthier physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, and that will help society at large. However, humanity through art just covers all the bases. So if you don't, you can volunteer time, you can volunteer money, any amount will help. So serving others is a deeply loving way to serve humanity. So please get involved. And to learn more about my work, please visit glenalex.com and tune in to the next episode of The Glen Alex Show on the Bold Brave TV network. And until next time, be well.
Joyful, connected, confident, complete. Let